3 games to none. America is listening to Fox News.
The Federal Reserve is starting to increase interest rates to fight inflation, but they're still so low, making it the perfect time to refinance your home, to lower your rate, and perhaps take advantage of its increased value to put some cash in your pocket during these uncertain times. Cash that you can have the freedom to access when you want, where you want, with your Bank Pacific Visa debit card. Lower your rate, put cash in your pocket. Access your cash when you want, where you want, with your Visa debit card. Where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, credit conditions apply.
Kings Guam World Tennis Tour, presented by GTA, is bringing international tennis back to Guam. 4 weeks of international play will swing into action with 2 weeks of juniors, followed by 2 weeks of pros, May the 15th through June 12th. The Guam National Tennis Federation will host world-ranked players who will be coming to Guam from all over the world. Netters will compete for ranking points and cash to improve their position among the world's best. Matches will be played daily at the Guam National Tennis Center in Harmon, starting May 15th through June 12th. Special thanks to our platinum sponsors, Dimension Systems, New Gen, American Medical Center, and Morico Equipment.
A judge ruling on Friday that Title 42 will remain in place. It had been set to expire Monday. Fox's Bill Malugin has more from Eagle Pass, Texas.
That federal ruling really isn't going to change anything on the ground here at the southern border. The illegal crossings will continue. Title 42 has been in place this whole time, and we expect everything to stay the same. We've had groups consistently crossing here in Eagle Pass, just walking across the river in broad daylight, right in front of the Texas National Guard. They walk along the barbed wire, they give themselves up, and then an overwhelmed Border Patrol will respond a short time later to pick them up and process them. From what we've been seeing here in the Eagle Pass area, it's almost all Cubans, Venezuelans, and Nicaraguans, and those are demographics that are not being expelled from the country via Title 42. That is why so many of them are willing to cross illegally and voluntarily give themselves up, because they know they likely will not be removed from the country.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams reportedly has presidential aspirations.
Eric Adams keeping an eye on the White House in the event President Biden decides not to run in 2024. Source telling the New York Post that Adams believes he has a platform to run for national office for president in 2024, adding that the National Democratic Party has gone too far to the left. Spokesman for Adams denies the report, saying the rumors are unfounded. He claims that the mayor has not had any conversations with anyone about running for president. According to the spokesman, Adams is 100% focused on lowering crime and improving the economy in the Big Apple. Sue Guzman, Fox News.
Miami Mayor Francis Suarez telling Fox and Friends Weekend Sunday why Twitter should move its headquarters to his city.
Elon's acquisition, Twitter, would be a perfect sort of icing on the cake if he were to move it to Miami, because Miami is the freest city in America, the most successful city in America. Him bringing Twitter here and revolutionizing Twitter to make it a better platform is something that dovetails nicely with Miami.
I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
Check out the newest hydro and garden center to hit Guam, Crop King Hydro. We have a huge selection of plant nutrients, soils, hydroponic mediums, organic pest control pumps, plant support, tools, and so much more. Call 635-4769. 635-GROW. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6 at the Dededo Satina Mall, right across from Payless and Paradise Fitness. For whatever you grow, think Crop King Hydro. Crop King Hydro.
Hafaday, Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
Subway's Eat Fresh Refresh does it again, bringing back a classic fan favorite on the menu. The roast beef returns. And not just any roast beef, it's choice Angus roast beef, flavorful and satisfying on its own, or layered with oven-roasted turkey and Black Forest ham in the Subway Club. Whether you're a choice Angus roast beef purist or like the variety of the Subway Club, both come piled high on hearty multi-grain bread with fresh hand-sliced veggies. Get your fill of the new roast beef at Subway. Eat fresh.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I can't tell you how good it feels to sit in front of a microphone and say those immortal words again. Boy, it was a long, long weekend. It started on Friday afternoon at 1800, and it ended just a few minutes ago, and I swear it was 3 weeks long.
It felt like it.
It sure did. But we're back, Jose. We're back here where we belong. Microphones in front of us, screens in front of us, in communication with our tailgating international radio listening audience. It really doesn't get a whole lot better than that. So let's see. I think I'll go next to the card, as you were. Zemi Kadni. Got a lot of explaining to do about the card today. I'm going to start out by laying a foundation, an article that ran in the Daily News today. Pay raises concerning. The government of Guam's budget will be able to sustain the series of pay raises increases that have been coming down. Now they said coming down the pipe. No. That's not the expression. The expression is coming down the pike, P-I-K-E.
Maybe they had meth on the mind.
Maybe. Yeah. Pike, because the pike is another word, turnpike, coming down the road, yeah. But that's not what the Daily News. The government of Guam's budget will be able to sustain the series of increases that have been coming down the pipe. Well, maybe it was Senator Joe San Augustine. According to Senator San Augustine, Chairman of the Legislature's Committee on Appropriations and the Office of Finance and Budget. But not every lawmaker shares his confidence. The past 12 months, Governor Lulian Guerrero has authorized raises that will add around $50 million in annual costs for the government. 18% for law enforcement, 20% for educators, an additional pay differential for administrators. That comes up to $30.4 million. 15% nurse pay increase plus differentials for nurses at different agencies, which will cost about $4.36 million. And whenever I see these things and hear how glad government officials are to provide these things, I always have to ask this nasty question. Who's going to pay for it? And I know that's very impolite. I know that, yeah, right. I know that's very impolite. I know that it's not politically correct, but it's probably the most important of all to ask, who's going to pay for all of these raises? And of course, the answer is every single one out there in our international radio listening audience who files his taxes on Guam is going to pay for those raises. I got to take a second here to get tuned in to Facebook again. Yeah, so sometimes Facebook pops right up, and then 2 minutes later it freezes. I don't know why it does that. Do you know, Jose?
No idea.
Yeah. And of course, it's pretty important because I want to know what our international radio listening audience is thinking out there and what they're posting on the Facebook page. So I really don't like to start unless I got it set up the way it should be set up. Back to the article. Additionally, there's a general pay plan study underway for between 2,000 and 3,000 government of Guam employees. Department of Administration officials said last month. Guam DOE's raise in particular brought up concerns from senators about the government's ability to pay during the agency's budget hearing last week. But San Augustine on Thursday said that between the coming military buildup, a rebounding economy, and more reimbursements and grants from the federal government, revenues will be able to carry the cost for the pay raises and more. Revenue projections based on historical data show that the raises could be covered. So why is everybody panicking? Why is there? That's because that's what we've been conditioned to do for the last 2 years.
So what did his other tarot card tell him?
Yeah, well, I understand that before they sat down for their budget discussions, they went out behind the legislature and slaughtered a pig and examined the entrails of the pig quite diligently. So they really got their stuff together. Revenue tracking for fiscal 2022 showed the general fund collecting $68 million more in taxes than originally projected, and that amount was likely to grow, San Augustine said Thursday. Now, a short explanation here. When the national government pours $1 billion into our economy, it's kind of like pouring that money into a funnel. And the funnel doesn't have one big spout on the bottom. It's got the big spout, and then it's got a little spout on the side. So when you pour it in there, all of the money that goes to wages, some of the money that the wage earners pay in taxes comes out the little spout. And when people spend their money anywhere on the island, our 4%, 5% gross receipts tax takes some of that money out. So a lot of this $68 million is the result of the national government pouring billions of dollars into that economic funnel. And when they stop doing that, guess what's going to come out of the little spout? Ta-da. A consolidated revenue and expenditure report released Friday afternoon showed that revenues were indeed rising, up to $87 million in potential excess for the close of April. We use that and we just plan. I honestly believe we shouldn't be too worried, San Augustine said. Senator Talina Nelson this week introduced Bill 305 to fund the Guam DOE pay raise through the general fund next fiscal year. San Augustine has signed on as a co-sponsor. Revenue's coming, he said. People that couldn't spend the past 2 years are now coming out and spending. That money has been sitting dormant. With the military planning to invest $1 billion a year for the next 3 years at least, and the Office of Public Accountability conducting an audit of taxes paid by military contractors, more money will be added to the tax base and more jobs will be created, San Augustine said. Then there's the full federal reimbursement for earned income tax credit and advanced child care credit program that began this year. The government usually pays out around $85 million combined for the two programs, which reimburse low and middle income residents through tax refunds. But with the feds taking over, between 70 and 80% of the local government's tax refunds are covered, San Augustine said. Boy, we're lucky on that one. Because as I pointed out before, we don't have to pay the earned income tax credit cash out. We're doing it because of local law. But if we're getting reimbursed, so what? San Augustine said he's not concerned about construction costs for the new medical campus, Guam Memorial Hospital, and the prison for the Department of Corrections. Either the government is authorized to spend up to $35 million annually on these projects for the next 30 years through legislation San Augustine introduced. I don't feel the threat exists. And if anybody wants to claim they know the threat, please tell me. I'll be out of the office for a couple hours. I'm going to the court to file a petition for change of name. I'm changing my middle name from Shimizu to Pollyanna. Joe Pollyanna San Augustine. But with budget talks for the next fiscal year in full swing, other lawmakers have been sharing very different opinions from the finance chairman. There was a, quote, frenzy of spending being done by the administration with no input from lawmakers, Tello said at a budget hearing for the Office of Public Accountability on Thursday. Where are we going to get the funding? We're in an artificial economy right now. Things are not a reality that's sitting on our desk in the CRER reports. I mean, the only thing that's realistic is the special funds, which is trailing below projected revenues. That would be things like the Tourist Attraction Fund. Senator Joanne Brown, during the hearing, also expressed doubt about the government's ability to keep up spending levels over a long period of time. Well, we have this increased money flowing. It's wonderful. But, you know, I don't know where it's going to be next year or the year after, or as the money dissipates and decreases in our government, how we're going to cover the additional cost of the government that's grown so substantially in my mind in the last couple of years. Let me repeat that. A government, let's see, in our government, how we're going to cover the additional cost of government that's grown so substantially in the last couple of years. GovGuam's budget has nearly doubled over the last 20 years, as it approached $1 billion for fiscal 2023, she said. The growth was not the standard in a government that typically had to manage with less each year. I just think it's something we need to be mindful of. As they say, everything that goes up eventually is going to come down. Yeah. All right. Now I've got the editorial from the Daily News, but I'm going to save that till last because I've got something else to read right now, and it's time for me to do my Rush Limbaugh imitation. Jose, I don't like to talk about myself so much on the show, but this time I have to because it's about me.
Proceed.
Yeah, this is an op-ed that appeared in Sunday's paper. The Sunday Forum asked, let's see, I don't think I brought it along, asked the question, because teachers got a raise, teachers and cops got a raise, should everybody else get a raise too? And here's my answer to that question. Teachers, cops, and nurses recently received raises. Good. Most would agree that these folks serve our most important needs. Even mill-run politicians, when awakened from sound sleep, would habitually spout, education, public safety, and public health are my priorities. What happened? Where am I? Oh, I just woke up. Yeah, I mean, it's such a part of the agenda for most politicians. Sir, I don't know if you've had time to look at the menu, but could you tell me what you like to order for lunch? Education, public safety. Oh, wait a minute.
Must be an election year.
Yeah. Of course, for teachers, cops, and nurses to be top priority, others must be secondary, tertiary, etc. Can only have one top priority, folks. To the point that efficiency economy may dictate that there may not be enough jobs as opposed to work to go around. Yeah. The real downside of economizing our government, well, we might not have enough jobs for all the layabouts to do. People have got to feed their families. They got mortgages to pay. It's our responsibility to make sure there's enough jobs for everybody that, I was going to say that wants to work, but that isn't even necessary. Okay, going back to my op-ed here, organization, reorganization, and elimination are the key concepts guided by this mission statement. Now, here's the mission statement. You've heard it before. An efficient, effective government operating within the rule of law that provides basic government services on at least a break-even basis. That's all we should be expecting from our government. Not a lot of nice-to-haves, not a lot of frills, not a lot of shiny objects, just basic government services and on at least a break-even basis, not going into the hole. Maybe coming out a little bit ahead once in a while, put a little money away for a rainy day. Now, of course, the definition of, quote, basic government services would be subjected to the usual legislative quibbling. Yeah, well, you know, my brother works for the Office of Sustainability at the university. So the Office of Sustainability at the university, that's a basic government service because it's about sustainability. And besides, he's my brother. But adherence to the mission statement, priorities, as you were, subject to usual legislative quibbling, but absent adherence to the mission statement, priorities are nothing more than the used car salesman's puffing to make the sale. Oh, sir, you know, this car right here, it's almost brand new. It was owned by a little old lady school teacher who never drove faster than 15 miles an hour and always parked it in a garage. This is a wonderful car. It's cheap at $35,000. Well, just look at it. The rubber alone is worth a couple $1,000. You know, the 2006 Honda Accord was the best damn car Honda ever made. People are still buying them instead of used news cars. That's puff. That's that, and that is a legal term. Everybody recognizes that car salesmen engage in puffery. And so long as it's within tolerable limits, it's not even something that's actionable. People, when you go to the used car lot, you expect the salesman to puff, right? To engage in puffery. And to the same extent, legislators do the same thing. We're going to balance the budget. We're going to have a surplus this year, and we're going to pave the streets with gold.
What threat?
Yeah. I don't know if I ever mentioned this before, Jose, but when I used to go out on stump speeches, pocket meetings, and stuff like that, I had a speech that went like this. You know, if you vote for me, I'm going to make things better. The next time you go up to RevTax to renew your driver's license, you're not only going to get a new driver's license, you're going to get a brand new Lexus free of charge. And when you get in that Lexus and drive it away, don't look for blacktop on the highways. The streets are going to be paved. By this time, everybody in the audience is laughing. And all of my colleagues are angry at me, because I pulled back the curtain. All right. So, repeating that sentence again, unless we adhere to that basic, that devotion to basic government services, all we're going to have is puffery rather than fiscal responsibility. A good place to start would be 5 GCA Section 1A, reorganization. That statute provides the governor considerable ability to combine and eliminate agencies to provide for efficiencies. The tools are there. It's right there. You know, the governor doesn't need legislative approval. He can combine agencies. He can eliminate agencies that we don't need. He can bring about great efficiencies. I should have said they can. Yeah. I guess maybe when I was using the word he, I'd given up on she. I know she won't do it, so maybe he'll do it. Now, going on, the tools are there, but we may have to bring in eyes from outside to help us with the reorganization, to compensate for GovGuam insiders to perpetuate their empirical status quo. They've already built empires within the government. Reorganization will threaten those empires. Nobody in the government wants to see that happen. And I've seen it at 3 different departments, the building of empires. I suppose it cannot be avoided in large bureaucracies. Going on, the scope of the task, that is reorganizing the government, exceeds space available in this column and the expertise of this author. Wow, I admitted that I couldn't do it by myself. Wow, that's momentous for Tall Tales. But I'm not going to offer the entire reorganization, but I'm going to suggest some how abouts. How about this? How about that? How about letting the Department of Rev Tax concentrate on taxes and being the collection agent for the entire government as it sheds its licensing and inspection functions? So Rev Tax, you go out and collect all of the taxes that people owe. That'll be your job. And if anybody else, any other agency in the government owes money, they'll turn it over to you because you got the mechanism in place. You're good at it. You can collect it. You can collect for the hospital, the library, all of those gigantic library fines, whatever. And then government-wide licensing and inspection functions could be consolidated in one shop. Maybe all of the folks that inspect restaurants, bars, and taverns, instead of being spread around between more than one agency, put them all in the same agency. This allows for cross-training. It allows for what the principles of war refer to as economy and economy of force and mass. It allows you to concentrate your resources where you really need them, not in accordance with a stale organizational chart. How about some consolidation in the law enforcement community? Maybe some of the things that the uniformed services outside GPD do can be transferred to GPD and vice versa. I don't know, but it's certainly worth looking into. And how about this one? Let's move probation from the judicial branch to the executive branch and merge it with parole. Functions are very similar. Probation deals with pre-sentenced detainees. Parole deals with sentenced inmates. But much of the work is very, very similar. It's keeping track of people, counseling people, keeping track of them. And once again, I think there could be some economies if you concentrated the two. Now, of course, the folks in probations would scream and, "You can't do that to us. We're in the judiciary. Don't send us to the executive branch." And I remember when the passport office was moved from the governor's office to Rev Tax, where it belonged. Rev Tax does window service. The governor's office doesn't. It was just one more boondoggle. We made almost $1 million from issuance of passports, another benefit of our Organic Act made possible by the so-called insular cases. But no one in the governor's office would ever tell you what happened to that $1 million that they collected on passport money. So it made a lot of sense to move it to Rev Tax. Once again, economies of scale, cross-training, etc. And that's where it is. But when it went up there, there were four, as I recall, there were 4 passport acceptance agents who would have thought that they were being exiled to Slobovia or something like that. They just couldn't handle it. All right, let's take a short break and we'll come back here to this piece of work.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing The Point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, so I left off with the idea of merging probations and parole into parole and moving probations out of the judicial branch. And I go on to say and that branch needs to be completely separated from DepCorps. It's not part of the Department of Corrections, although sometimes it seems like it is. The touchstone would be to organize GovGuam so as to make maximum use of economies of scale, division of labor, and specialization. Well, a necessary reorganization is a tall order, too tall even for me. There is some low-hanging fruit. That is, parts of the government that don't even allow for quibbling about basic government services. So far from basic government services, nothing to quibble about. Check out this list. First on the list, the Mayor's Council of Guam. A basic government service to give Angel Sablan a huge raise so that he'll have enough time to go and testify at sentencing hearings for arch criminals. That's the major service. That and enunciating new principles of law dealing with geese and ganders. Ernest Chargalog of Molesso, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Next on the list, the Commission on Decolonization for the Implementation and Exercise of Chamorro Self-Determination. That's the full name of that agency. Yeah. Now, what does the Commission on Decolonization for the Implementation and Exercise of Chamorro Self-Determination contribute to basic government services? They spend $1 million a year. And how does it help your life out there? What does it do for you, Mr. and Mrs. Tailgater? And then the last one on the list, the Bureau of Women's Affairs.
Bois.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the most useless government agency ever created. If it isn't, it's certainly in the top two. Okay, then going on, not within the governor's purview, but worthy of consideration are the following. Elimination of Government House. Are you ready for this? Elimination of Government House. It's a relic of colonialism. Yeah, you know, we should get the wrecking ball up there this afternoon. We've got to decolonize this island. That's a relic of colonialism.
I'm surprised they haven't called it a plantation.
Exactly. And, of course, it is a relic of colonialism. Back in the beginning of the government of Guam, we brought our governors out here from the mainland. They were appointed by the president. They were confirmed by the Senate. They had to have a spiffy place to live, so we built Government House. And the governors moved out here, and they stayed during the dependency of their incumbency. We don't bring governors out from the mainland anymore. And in case you haven't realized it, Guam is not a really large island. I somehow managed to get from Jigo all the way to Ganya for years and years and years to go to work. I didn't think I had to rent an apartment in Ganya during my work week. There's no excuse for spending all of that money on the government house staff, on the building, etc., when our governors have been local ever since Manuel Guerrero back in 1962. Yeah, all the governors have been local since 19. How long is that? That's 60 years, right? Yeah. So we need to make up our minds that we don't need the governor to stay in Government House. And then we need to decide what its highest and best use is and put it to that use. Okay, elimination of the lieutenant governor, another relic of colonialism. Back in 1950, if the governor had to go to the mainland for some reason, communications were slow, unreliable, and very expensive. It was seen necessary to have someone here to hold the reins. That's R-E-I-N-S, not what comes down from the sky. To hold the reins during the governor's absence. We don't need that anymore. The governor, like the president, is governor wherever he is. He can get on, I've made this demonstration before. With this device right here, I could communicate with the last president of the United States with Twitter, just a cell phone. You can talk to anybody anywhere in the world instantly. So we don't need a lieutenant governor. We don't need all of the money that we spend on the staff for the lieutenant governor, his office, et cetera, et cetera. So that money could be better spent somewhere else. And, of course, it's a relic of colonialism. I mentioned before Denver Dickerson, the last appointed secretary of Guam from Washington. The last appointed secretary was Kurt Moylan, who became the first elected lieutenant governor. But Denver Dickerson was just a good Democrat credentials, and he was appointed to a sinecure out here in a nice tropical island as a reward for being a good Democrat. Bill Daniel, former Governor Bill Daniel, who was the governor up until 1962 when he blew town after Typhoon Karen, from Waco, Texas. And if you're ever in Waco, Texas, go to Baylor, very interesting college there. And Baylor has a kind of a frontier park, kind of showing you what Texas, the old Texas was like. And it's called the Governor Daniel Park. And I've been there a couple of times, and I always amaze the docent by stumping them. Tell me, Ms. Docent, D-O-C-E-N-T, when was Bill Daniel governor of Texas? Well, I think it was a long time. I don't know. I could look that up for you, sir. Well, I know the answer, and I'll tell you. Bill Daniel was never governor of Texas. You know why this is called Governor Daniel Park? Because he was the governor of Guam. His brother, Price Daniel, was big in Texas politics, right up there with Connolly and Johnson. And, of course, Johnson is always the biggest name wherever you go, right?
I heard that governor brought a cattle or something to Guam.
Daniel did.
Daniel?
Not only brought cattle to Guam, he even had a steer brought up to his office on the second
floor.
Yeah.
What a mess.
Yeah, so he was the brother of Price Daniel. So, another sinecure. Hey, Bill, got an interesting job for you. You want to be a governor? Yeah, sure, I'd like to be. We're going to make you governor of Guam. And away he came. He was, he didn't know anything at all about he knew how to be a good Democrat, and he knew how to be Price Daniel's brother. But that's all he knew. So he and Denver were classic examples of colonial relics. We're way past that now. We don't need a lieutenant governor. We don't need a government house. We do need money, however. Yeah, so I say let's eliminate that. Let's eliminate the government house staff. How about the governor's motor pool? Now, I remember when Carl Gutierrez was governor, I'd see him driving around all by himself. I know he knows how to drive, and I expect even Governor Leon Guerrero knows how to drive.
Are you sure?
Well, I'm not sure, but,
She's driving the island crazy.
That's true. So, to use a uniformed police officer as a chauffeur is an extreme waste of resources. And to have these security platoons traveling with the governor, same thing. Guam police are not trained in executive security, and my suspicion is they don't know anything about it. I've seen security officers with, say, governors. The governor sitting down to lunch and the security officer sitting right down beside him eating lunch, great security, right?
Maybe he's the official food tester.
Maybe he was the taster. That could be the answer, yeah. So we don't need those security staff. We need a part-time legislature supported by an appropriately sized classified staff. You know, that could save us $5 or $6 million right off the bat in operating costs, not to mention they probably would be able to figure out the open government law, so they could get their notices in the paper on time to debate things in session so people would know about it.
I wanted to honk that, but that's serious.
That is. It really is. Okay, so much for my ideas of what we need to be done. Now, getting back to the subject here, teachers got raises, shouldn't everybody else? And here's what I say about that. Obviously, the argument that because they got raises, other agencies' employees should ratchet up too. You know what a ratchet is? You know, you pull a lever up and you can't bring it back down. Up, up, up. You know what have you ever seen these levers that are about almost a yard long with a grip on the top and the ratchet gears on the bottom? Usually breaks. So you pull it, you grab the grip, pull it back, and it ratchets back, and in order to release it, you have to grip it again. You know what those devices are called? Johnson bars. That is a Johnson bar. And back in the days of steam locomotives, the ability to manipulate a Johnson bar was very important if you were the locomotive engineer. Yeah. Okay. Obviously, the argument that because they got raises, other agencies' employees should ratchet up too only exacerbates the problems created by our too big and too inefficient government until we get to an efficient, effective government operating within the rule of law that provides basic government services on at least a break-even basis. If we do, the word priorities will no longer be a synonym for puff. Yeah. Okay, that's my sermon for today. And the Daily News kind of went along with me. So when 1,925 public school teachers were told a 20% pay raise was on the way, we were perplexed as to how this batch of wage increases, in addition to recent law enforcement officer and nursing pay raises, would affect the government's budget. While we commend this stroke of financial magic for teachers, all of whom are more deserving of the national standard pay, we also must assert that workers in every sector are facing financial difficulties. We're not out of COVID-19, as your Wuhan virus pandemic woods yet, and we believe that if the government cannot afford to review employee raises for other public-funded positions based on merit, it certainly is in no position to grant across-the-board pay raises for one particular group. Every teacher in the system canceled his subscription today. Pay raises are rewards for job performance and should be considered fairly based on the quality of one's work, progress, and productivity. Beyond these measures, financial decisions like wage increases must be implemented responsibly with healthy, sustainable budget plans in place, not just when a cash windfall appears during a crisis. According to a memo from the Department of Administration, teacher pay raises will cost Gov Guam an extra $30.4 million annually. That's nearly equivalent to Guam Memorial Hospital's $35 million fiscal year 2023 budget request, when the hospital's chief financial officer admitted that despite improved revenue collections, the funds are necessary to keep up with staffing pay raises. Coincidentally, the Power Authority projected it will be $70 million in the hole for its full fuel shipping expenses come January, the same expenses fueling the significant increase in power bills ahead. Now, of course, they're not going to be $70 million in the hole because they're going to raise rates. But that's what would happen if rates weren't raised. I don't want to have Simon calling me up here and taking me to the woodshed again. Hundreds of millions in federal relief funds have kept the local government afloat throughout the pandemic. But have our leaders considered what happens when the relief funds dry up and 1 million tourists don't arrive on Guam this year? Pay raises stay with us forever. To justify as significant a dollar figure as it would require to fund raises in the government, the public needs to see the financial projections for the next 5 years, at least, to show that we can afford it. To do otherwise would be an irresponsible approach to managing taxpayer dollars and pork adobo. All right, let's take a short break here, and we'll come back and I'll wrap this up.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Yeah, I love the music from Carmen. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this here. Let's just start out with teachers, okay? Now, when you're hiring anybody, there are several considerations that you have to take, several considerations that bear on the process. Now, a good place to start is the market. Let's say that we could take the archetypical teacher, and let's say we have a teacher that's rated excellent in accordance with some kind of objective standard that we could perhaps hire and keep around for 25 years. What would the market expense for that teacher be? How much would we have to pay to get that teacher? Well, a lot depends on the competition. So if that teacher, if there are 17 schools in the area, then the salary paid for the highest salary paid for one of the 17 schools for an excellent teacher would be the benchmark. We have a benchmark here. It's called DODEA. So if we want to consistently be able to hire top-notch teachers, then we need to think about matching the DODEA salary schedule. And remember, I also mentioned keeping them around for 25 years. You know, hiring somebody at a low salary who's only going to be around for a couple of years is sort of a false economy. It costs you money to start over every time. So the first thing then would be the market. And if we want to be competitive here, we need to think about matching salaries at DODEA. The second thing and I'm not listing them in the order of importance, availability of money. You could come up with a salary schedule that matches DODEA, but if you've only got enough money to pay for 80%, then you're not matching DODEA, you're just fooling yourself. The third thing is internal equity. Are you paying teachers the right salary in comparison to other people with the same skill level? And one of the things that I think needs to be looked at as far as our teachers are concerned, we're paying administrators huge salaries. I mean, really big salaries. And I explained part of it the other day by saying that, as I understand it, everybody with an every educator is paid on the teacher's salary schedule, and then there are differentials for people who are principals and assistant principals, teacher salary plus. But a principal would have been a teacher probably for quite some time, and the longer you stay in the system, the more your salary ratchets up. Salary increments every year, promotions, pay raises, etc. But that part needs to be looked at very carefully. If I had anything to say about it, I would say that you really don't need a parity between principal, assistant principals, teacher salaries, and teacher salaries. Being a teacher is a lot harder than being a principal. I remember back in my own teaching days when we were negotiating the board union contract, we explained to the board side, which is made up in part of principals, it's one thing to come in and sit at your office, answer the phone, and push papers all day. But if you're a high school teacher, it's like being a stand-up comedian doing 5 shows every single day. And it's not the same show every day. You've got to write out the script for your show every single day, and it's hard work. And
tough crowd.
Yeah, and it's not a Miami Beach audience either that you're working with out there. So to find really good teachers, I think is really hard. And I'm going to oversimplify here. Being a principal nowadays means being a manager. And there are lots of good managers floating around. You know, just look at the government of Guam. I see some folks out there that don't perhaps have any particular expertise, but are pretty good managers. Vince Areola at Public Works, Joanne Brown, Public Works, and the port. Joanne Brown has never been a ship captain, but she's a good administrator. That's what it takes to run an agency, and that's what it takes to run a school. So perhaps it isn't even necessary to have been a teacher in order to be a good principal. And I think this needs to be taken into consideration. Teachers have to be the top dog at the Department of Education, salary-wise and every other way. And it's never been that way to the best of my knowledge. That's one of the reasons for public law, 2835, the Every Child Act. So those are some considerations that come in to teacher salaries. But of all of the salaries that we have to deal with, I'm going to hypothesize that teachers are the most important. If you don't have a good educational product, if you're not turning out educated kids, your society is doomed. And from a purely selfish standpoint, it's a lot more enjoyable to live in a community of educated people than it is to live in a community of dropouts and ne'er-do-wells. So I think we've got to put education up front. And of course, we got to have cops, for order maintenance purposes. And when it comes to health, we're so far behind the power curve, I don't know if we'll ever get caught up. Hospital, personnel, you name it. The only strength we have here, we have probably a better collection of private practitioners than we could reasonably hope for in a city of 154,000. Guys like Jerome Landstrom, a hand surgeon, I would suspect that ordinarily you need 500,000 people to generate enough business for a hand surgeon. And we've got some other cases like that also. One of the things that where we're really short on is this. I feel pretty good about health care right now. I take pretty good care of myself. My life motto is that it's better to wear out than to rust out. A lot harder to hit a moving target, so I keep moving a lot. And I try to eat healthy, and I try to take care of myself. But the scary part about living here is this. If I were stricken with a stroke or a car accident, sitting right where I'm sitting right now, I'm a long way from emergency medicine. Not as the crow flies, but to get from here to the emergency room at one of the 3 hospitals, it's not quick.
That's called a country mile.
It is. Now, I've never checked this out, but I read somewhere that if you were in Houston, Texas, which of course is a huge city because in Texas size does matter. Are you listening out there, Peter Santos? Yeah, size does matter. And in Houston, it's a big city, and I'm told that no matter where you are only 10 minutes from an emergency room. By ambulance, by helicopter, by hook or crook, they've got a tremendous emergency medicine system. Now, when you're 23, that probably doesn't make so much difference to you. When you're 83, it kind of does, yeah. So these are the challenges that we really need to work on, but we can't do any of these things as long as we have such a wasteful government. You know, oh, we got a little extra money. Let's give everybody a raise. We gave teachers a raise. We got to give the support staff on and on and on and on. And because of that, you know, we're living in in a land of good enough. Is our hospital, is it number one? Is it top ranked? Is it right up there with Cedars and Johns Hopkins? Oh, no, but it's good enough. Yeah. We're just about at the halftime, aren't we, Jose? 1 minute. And after the halftime show, we're going to once again witness Hope's screen test. So I know you don't want to miss that.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A common goal. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. During his trip to Asia, President Biden is expected to launch a long-anticipated Indo-Pacific Trade Pact Monday. Its purpose is to help the U.S. work more closely with Asian countries on issues including supply chains and anti-corruption efforts. The latest step in the Biden administration's attempt to counter China's economic strength in the region. President Biden speaking to reporters in joint appearance with Japan's Prime Minister in Tokyo Monday.
The U.S.-Japanese alliance has long been the cornerstone of peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific, and the United States remains fully committed to Japan's defense, and we will face the challenges of today and the future together.
Australia's new Prime Minister Anthony Albanese sworn into office before meeting with President Biden for a summit in Tokyo. A military plane carrying the first large shipment of baby formula arriving in Indianapolis from Europe Sunday.
The first U.S. Air Force C-17 landed in Indianapolis carrying 78,000 pounds of formula to fill 500,000 baby bottles. The pallets were then offloaded onto FedEx trucks waiting next to the plane. It's the first time in history the U.S. military has launched an emergency mission like this to rush critical nutrition to millions of hungry American babies.
Fox's Lucas Tomlinson. White House COVID-19 response coordinator Dr. Ashish Jha telling ABC's This Week Sunday the differences between monkeypox and COVID-19.
I feel like this is a virus we understand. We have vaccines against it. We have treatments against it. It's spread very differently than SARS-CoV-2. It's not as contagious as COVID. So I am confident we're going to be able to keep our arms around it.
Florida health officials investigating a case of possible monkeypox. America is listening to Fox News.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
We're already Pica's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Pennsylvania's GOP Senate race still too close to call and is most likely headed to a recount.
The margin between Dr. Oz and David McCormick is just under 1,100 votes. That's the size of your average high school. That's a 0.1% difference, with Oz holding on to a tiny advantage. On Friday, a Pennsylvania appeals court ruled in a different case that mail-in ballots without a date on the envelope can still be counted. The McCormick campaign reached out to counties informing them of this ruling, while the Oz campaign says this is a breach of standing Pennsylvania law. So far, David McCormick has been slightly favored when it comes to mail-in ballots. And as for no excuse mail-in voting, well, that was passed almost by the entire Republican state legislature back in 2019. Since then, Republicans have been trying to undo it.
Fox's Alexandria Hoff in Pittsburgh. The winner of the primary election will face Democrat candidate and current Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. Afghanistan's Taliban implementing a new order for female TV news anchors.
The order forces all female TV news anchors in the country to cover their faces while on air. The move is part of a hardline shift from the Taliban, who seized power last August and has drawn condemnation from rights activists. In recent weeks, the Taliban has also barred girls from attending school after the 6th grade and ordered all women in public to wear head-to-toe clothing that leaves only their eyes visible. The move brings back memories of the Taliban's last time in power in Afghanistan from 1996 through 2001, where they imposed overwhelming restrictions on women before being ousted by the U.S. after the September 11th attacks. Ted Lindner, Fox News.
The Golden State Warriors defeating the Dallas Mavericks in Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals, 109-100. The Warriors up 3-0.
3, Steph got it! Oh, what a shot! He is ruthless!
TNT with the play-by-play. I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
The Federal Reserve is starting to increase interest rates to fight inflation, but they're still so low, making it the perfect time to refinance your home, to lower your rate, and perhaps take advantage of its increased value to put some cash in your pocket during these uncertain times. Cash that you can have the freedom to access when you want, where you want, with your Bank Pacific Visa debit card. Lower your rate, put cash in your pocket. Access your cash when you want, where you want, with your Visa debit card. Where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, credit conditions apply.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Win a $100 gas card when you purchase Gasolina energy drinks. Be one of 5 winners and enter now when you purchase 3 for $4 Gasolina 8-ounce or 3 for $5 Gasolina 16-ounce energy drinks. Drawing on June 21st. Free gas with 76 Circle K. Take it easy.
Ice, baby. Get a 10-pound bag of ice for only 95 cents when you purchase a 12-pack or more of any soda or beer. Only 95 cents for a 10-pound bag of ice. Swing by Circle K today. Some conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Ice, baby.
So here we are, another great halftime show here on Tall Tales. Next item on the agenda is Hope Cristobal's screen test. But before we roll the film, I'd like to chat a little bit with Senator Chris Duenas, who's been patiently waiting in the green room. So what can you tell me about teacher pay raises, Chris?
Have a day, Senator, Honorable Marine. I always mix up the order. My favorite talk show host and just a general overall good gentleman. I didn't want to violate the rules of the best show on Guam talk show, which is Tall Tales, and be out of order on the topic. So I figured I'd jump in right now since you were talking about it before. You're going to move into the next subject.
Good call.
But you know, Senator, many of the Republican caucus has been calling for caution on the way, particularly the governor has approached this issue. And what is particularly alarming is when you do these things by executive order, and let me just take you through what we had to endure in the 22 budget cycle, when deservingly the board at the Guam Memorial Hospital implemented their raises for the nurses. And they were able to do that, and all of the other raises that went out for the nurses, all of those raises were absorbed by virtue of the lapses that the agencies were incurring, and also even carried into the new fiscal year. So there was no additional appropriations made in the 22 budget for those raises, because they were done properly based on identifying the funds available within the budget, which totally makes sense and is so appropriate. So here now we have the governor parachuting in and deciding to do this pay raise, which I'm sure, as you have mentioned, is definitely appropriate for the teachers. And I agree with you in terms of benchmarking it against local teachers, because you're right. We lost a lot of teachers to Dodea because of that reason. And I think you're very aware too, Your Honor, what I failed to mention in my introduction as another distinguished title you have, is that we also have teachers in the private sector who teach for the love of teaching in private schools and do not have anywhere near the benefits of what public school teachers have. We have that in the Catholic schools. We have that throughout the educational system. My point is this. When you approach this, and here's where I'm going to go to the sobering Bob Klitzkie. I can't articulate it in the full context of what you do, and you did it in the paper the other day, is government operating at a break-even basis for the benefit of the community. If you're going to do this, which is appropriate, you do it in the context of the budget from the legislature, because it shouldn't be done just because of the fact that you have this boon of excess resources which you preside over and do a magic wand without taking into consideration the long-term effects of it, and meaning that if you were really to do this in a meaningful way, you would sequester resources and hold resources from other government operations which are not a priority, and make sure that you could pay the teachers who are so deserving. And you were very appropriate. I can give you an example. I know particularly within my family, a very, very good individual who is a doctorate of education who chose to stay within the public school system and continue to be an administrator, but would be paid less than what they could do outside because of the love of teaching. But the opposite also exists in terms of tenure moving up. And most administrators do that as their finality towards retirement. And now that situation is such that it's even more than the teachers. It's the 20% plus 15%. Which look, I'm not the one to judge in terms of, how it's offensive within the system. But, Your Honor, this is done even not in consideration of the other almost 1,800 employees who basically haven't even been considered in this pay adjustment. And those are the support staff. So this is why it's so inappropriate to do not only adobonomics, which is basically the, attribute to our good friend Lester Carlson, who basically has introduced a new technique of, budgeting, which is, I make a great adobo, but I'm not going to tell you what went into it. So it's not only an offense based on adobonomics, but it's offense based on just basic economics, which means where is the resources going forward when you now have an aggrieved group of individuals who would say, wait a minute, yes, but we also support teaching and learning. And so it's so obvious that what it comes down to is it is simply election year gift giving without consideration. And the saddest part about it is we're in a situation where we don't know what's going to happen after this economy of complete, full-blown military spending right now, construction spending, all the federal entities that are here, just full-blown. Like, if you look at the CRER, it really comes down to GRT that I'm sure most of these companies are paying, as well as the economic activity from all these employees and their withholding taxes, which is exactly what it bears out to be. All special funds are down pretty much. And so the sobering reality after a few years is we've spent all this money, and now we're going to get to a point to where it's not sustainable. And that's why it's completely wrong on the outset. I love the teachers. I have so many teachers in my family. It almost pains me to talk like this, but it's just an empty promise and the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, and it really puts teachers kind of in a tough position, doesn't it, Chris?
It does, because like you've said, I know so many teachers, not only within my family, but just teachers who I really care about and who are part of my circle of friends. I absolutely know the life they live. They don't live a life of excess. They don't live a life of luxury. And they literally, if you go on Facebook and whatever else, most of their posts are about what their kids are doing, how the classroom went. Right now, it's like graduation. You can't even get away from it in terms of how proud everybody is. And this is what it really is all about. And I know that I'm speaking to your heart because I know this is exactly where you come from. This is you. So many of you and your friends that I know really well in the fishing industry and others, this was your life. Your life was producing individuals who can be productive, great members of society, hoping for the future. This is what teachers do. And that's why it's so hard to try to enter in some sort of sober reality, because they deserve it. The thing is they're being used, and that's what upsets me. It is being used as an unsustainable measure going forward, whereby we can incrementally do this and take into consideration the fact that there is an entire economy out there that is suffering. Your Honor, this is how the Republican caucus is looking at approaching this going forward. We have seen the lowest entry of budget requests at 4%, and the highest now at 25% coming in for the teachers' pay as well as administrator pay, the 20 plus 15, which would be 35 for them, but the highest being 20. Your Honor, I'm going to tell you right now, I believe that by the time the budget session opens, and that's why I'm going to call for calling down each entity individually, and we should spend the whole month of August doing this, not ramrod this budget through. I think we're going to see the fact that we're going to be in excess of what the anticipated revenue projection above adopted revenues is going to be, which would be completely irresponsible. It should be an automatic no. And just take care of the priorities. If you said teacher pay is there, okay, fine. What are we going to cut? How are we going to find that revenue? Okay? How are we going to balance the budget across the board? But it should be an automatic no if once you see the total revenues of requested exceeding what the projected revenues, even in the most optimistic time right now, it should be an automatic no. And this is what I'm going to ask our caucus to do, because it's the right thing to do. We are not going to do a domonomics. We're not going to do electionomics. We're going to require, in fact, I'm now working on a bill, because if we anticipate revenues for 2 consecutive quarters, 3% below projected revenue, that we have to immediately kick in reorganization and other type of things to control revenue. You know, Your Honor, I think that anything above a certain amount of revenue for 2 consecutive should kick in the fact that it has to be a legislative appropriation based on a supplemental appropriation, not the whim of an executive order.
Well, it's time that you guys took control of the government back from the governor, who's a one-man show right now.
Don't you agree with that proposal?
I do.
I mean, it's unconscionable at this point. I mean, it is. I'll close with this, Your Honor. It seems to me like it's been a mirror of the emergency powers. It is a mirror of the emergency powers. I will do it my way. I will go it alone. Damn the legislature, damn everything else going forward. I will do it alone. And it, honestly, of all the things that you've been discussing in terms of the national tendencies and what's going on, it seems like it's arrived on our shores. Well, there is no balance of power. It is, you do it the way I want to do it or get out of my way.
Well, Chris, so long as you guys are able to continue to meet in your session hall across from the church, I think maybe you can work through it. I'm just a little bit leery, though, that the next thing she may try to do is move you up to the 19th floor. Well, thanks for...
I refuse, Your Honor, and I will not abort my responsibility.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for sharing with us, Chris, and hang in there, keep punching. We got to do this.
Thanks, Your Honor, and look forward to a bill introduction soon.
Okay. See you later, Chris. All right, Chris Duenas trying to hold the fort, trying to hold the line at the legislature. It's this whole, yeah, but teachers, you know, we want a raise. If people want raises, the people are suffering, on and on and on. Okay, it's time now for that weekly feature that I call Hope Cristobal's Screen Test. Hope, if you didn't know it, is the face and voice of the separatist movement here on the island, the folks that would like to see an independent Guam, a sovereign independent Guam cut loose from the United States. So as you watch Hope, remember, she's the leader here. So go ahead and roll it, Jose.
White colonization, that's who you are. Colonization is the same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. We need to just do different. We need to do better. Get off my island.
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing people here. I'm telling people how to protest and what to protest for. You need to go. You need to go.
I'm against this.
That's cool, but you cannot be policing people and telling them how to protest and what to advocate for. She has a right to yell.
I'm an indigenous tomorrow. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. Tayo mamalaw how sige judo ni tano. Di tau tano how. Waho bini tau tano. Waho bini magahoga. Waho na short na dai gizu bini. Hago tata na short mo bini. What's on you na? You need to leave.
You need to go.
Please.
You need to get out of here.
Please pause this.
Get out of here.
Please, this is not your place.
When I get a chance, go.
Please. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. Please.
No, you cannot confront.
What happened, ma'am?
Well, he confronted me.
What did he
He's
say?
telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals, my goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization. Ay, mamalo.
We are proud of you, Auntie.
Si Diyos mangasi.
He's safe.
Well, there you have it. You know, Jose, she wasn't wearing her mask. She was not wearing her mask.
How dare she?
Yeah. So, folks, that's Hope Cristobal. She is the chairperson of the Chamorro Language Commission, one of the leading lights of the Guam, of the separatist movement. And there was an article about her in the Pacific Island Times because she has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. This is not a tall tale. I'm not making this up. This is true. Professor Natividad at the university nominated Hope for the Nobel Peace Prize. And the Pacific Island Times ran a very nice puff piece about Hope Cristobal. You sometimes wonder if it's the real Hope Cristobal they wrote about or another one, but anyhow, that's what it is. And there's a description in this piece as to what you just saw. And it goes like this. As an activist, Cristobal is not afraid of confrontation. At the Black Lives Matter rally in Hagatna last year, there were counter-protesters harassing us, she said. So you saw the counter-protesters harassing Hope Cristobal. Boy, those people, man, they were just out. Well, wait a minute, it was only one, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Skin of her teeth.
Yeah, she just barely made it. There were counter-protesters harassing us. I wasn't afraid and backed down. There are always people out there who will challenge you. These are just part of the journey. It can be hard because I'm an educator. I went to the BLM rally because I want to show my support for oppressed people. I follow the news and I'm aware that innocent people are getting killed just because of the color of their skin. Now here's the real key line. We need to see each other beyond the color of our skin. You're a white man. Get off our island. I have more rights here than you. She said, we need to see each other beyond the color of our skin. That's Hope Cristobal. I'll be playing this again next Monday. I think it's really important, you know, with the separatist talk flying around here in the island, that you have a chance to see who one of the real leaders of the movement is in action. And I mean in action. All right, let's take a look at the card here and see what else we got on the show today. I've got Jesse Bloss versus Angel Sablon. I've got Helen versus Vanessa Williams. I've got Archbishop Cordileone versus Archbishop Burns. Yeah. The governor versus original landowners, and governor versus teachers. Starting out with Paul Zerzan and systemic racism. Paul Zerzan is the guy that was harassing, just terribly aggressively harassing Hope Cristobal in that video.
How dare you?
Did you notice that when she was talking to him, he took the top off his water bottle and took a drink? How impolite can you be?
That's the motive of a colonizer there.
Absolutely.
Drinking water.
The structures of systemic colonialism and racism. She's for oppressed peoples.
We don't have our own water here.
No. She's looking out for oppressed peoples, except the one she oppresses herself. Okay, let's take a look at the notices in the paper today. Once again, the Northern Soil and Water Soil Conservation District Board broke the law. They have an item in their agenda number 7, new business, with no description of what the new business is. And we've got the Guam Memorial Board of Trustees meeting. New business, old business, no description. They got a long list of really important stuff, all of which could be challenged because they didn't give proper notice for their meeting. And a really interesting thing, the Visitors Bureau did not break the open government law. But it's a really interesting meeting. Now, on the 21st, as you were the 31st of May, from 11 until 2 at the Hyatt Regency Ballroom, there will be a GVB management report and GVB tourism update. Now, I don't know if the board is going to be there or not. It costs you $38.50 per person to get in. So if it's going to be management and the board, I pay the $38.50, not because I'm so interested in the business. It's just that I haven't seen a good fight for a long time. Yeah, so because the Visitors Bureau Board said we're not having any more board meetings until we get some things straightened out here. So this is a really interesting notice. Okay, next item on the card. Well, let's head for Wrigley Field for a minute, and then we'll come back to the card.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtrain.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Okay, here we are. Wrigley Field in Chicago for the 7th inning stretch. That means I got 2 more innings to go today to wrap up another exciting, elucidating, educational episode of Tall Tales. Next item on the card is Jesse Bloss versus Angel Santos. And here's the lead story. Ex-Jonia mayor leaves federal prison. Former Jonia mayor Jesse Bloss is a free man. Bloss, 60, was convicted of extortion in a drug dealing case uncovered by federal authorities in 2019. The U.S. Bureau of Prisons reported that Bloss was released from custody April 15, about a month ahead of his May 10 scheduled release. In 2019, Bloss was sentenced to 37 months in prison. He will serve 3 years of supervised release, court records state. In December 2021, Bloss was denied his request to get out of prison early after he cited numerous medical conditions. The defendant was the mayor in the village of Jonia who used cluster mailboxes to traffic illegal drugs. When a federal informant stopped paying bribes, the then mayor started threatening the informant to the point that the informant had to be relocated for her own safety. District Court of Guam Chief Judge Frances Gatewood said in her decision. She added that Bloss' written letter of apology to the people fails to say why public corruption and or drug trafficking are harmful to Guam, indicating that the defendant either lacks remorse or does not comprehend the harmful effects of his actions. Well, you know, when he had the executive director of the mayor's council come to the district court and make an address to the judge asking to give Jesse Bloss a break, it's no wonder he had kind of a hard time figuring these things out. We would expect so much more from the executive director of the mayor's council. Bloss at the time told the court his release plan included moving to Hawaii. On Friday, the federal court unsealed the warrants executed during Bloss's arrest in 2019. At the time, federal agents seized his cell phone, multiple computers, and documents from the Jonia mayor's office and searched his vehicle. Investigators also seized Joey Terlahi's phone. Terlahi stands accused of exposing a woman to the risk of serious bodily injury at a barbecue in 2017 and ignoring and abusing his position as a government official in relation to a crime. Investigators allege that Terlahi helped Bloss when Bloss beat his girlfriend and detained her for 3 days. Just an all-around good scout, this guy, Jesse Bloss, right? Now, once again, Troy steps in and does the real job here. Troy went through all of those documents that were released and did an 11-page write-up on Candid News. So if you haven't seen it, it's pretty good reading. I'm not going to be able to go through the whole thing, but I'll try to pick off some of the highlights here that Troy gleaned from those records. And there are some initials, FCD, and there's another one in there. When I say the initials, that means people working with the government. As an example, according to recently unsealed search warrant applications for Terlahi's phone, on one occasion in 2017, the FCD was at a party with Bloss, Terlahi, and several others. The FCD said that she had introduced Terlahi to a female that Terlahi told the FCD that he wanted to have sex with. It's nice folks. Terlahi then told the FCD that the FCD should introduce Terlahi to another female. The FCD then told Terlahi, "You already have one girl. What do you have? Two?" You can figure out what the next word is. I'm not going to say it. Maybe if Peter calls, he could help us out with it. The FCD overheard Terlahi tell Bloss that Bloss should handle his girl. The FCD then turned around and remembers getting punched in the face by Bloss. The FCC wanted to flee and get into a vehicle. Bloss pulled the FCD out of the vehicle and the FCD into the house. The FCD was left in the house for approximately 3 days and was not able to leave. That's, the item that gets a lot of press. And then let me see what I've got next here. The FCD told law enforcement that she had provided both Bloss and Terlahi with packages of methamphetamine. That's Joey Terlahi. The FCD stated that Bloss and Terlahi would target women with drug problems who were willing to engage in sex in exchange for methamphetamine. FBI agent Fernandez stated in his application for the Terlahi search warrant. FBI undercover source reveals conspiracy, to release inmates from DOC. Sometime in October 3, 2018, the FBI planted a confidential human source, a CHS, into the Bloss-Terlahi alleged conspiracy. On December 11, FBI and USPIS, United States Postal Inspection Service, agents conducted a consensual recorded phone call in order to meet with Bloss in person. Fernandez wrote in his application. The CHS in this instance is a person who conspired with Bloss to use cluster mailboxes in Jonia to traffic packages of narcotics into Guam. The CHS told Bloss that CHS wanted to meet with Bloss to provide him his share of a package received via postal box previously provided by Bloss. The CHS brought up seeing Bloss and Joey Terlahi previously and asked Bloss if the CHS was in trouble as Terlahi is police. Bloss said, "Don't worry about Joey. He's Bloss's party." During the meeting, the CHS told Bloss she received a package and handed it off to her point of contact. Next item here. On June 19, the FBI agent directed the CHS to conduct an audio and video recorded meeting with Bloss. CHS told Bloss that the CHS has a cousin that's confined in DEPCOR. The CHS told Bloss that the CHS's family is willing to pay $15,000 so that the cousin can be released from jail for a few days. Bloss told the CHS that Joey will help. Bloss told the CHS that there were, and that's when Joey's a deputy director of corrections. Bloss told the CHS that there will be 4 people that need to be paid in order to help the CHS with releasing the CHS cousin from jail for a few days. The CHS told Bloss that the CHS family is putting together a lot of money so the family members have the opportunity to see the cousin who has been in jail for several years, the Fernandez document states. There's a family member from Hawaii that will be traveling to Guam and wants to spend a few days with the cousin. The CHS told Bloss that the cousin received a 25-year sentence and was involved in an incident that caused the death of a police officer. Bloss told the CHS that Bloss is familiar with that case and that Bloss can help the CHS. Bloss asked the CHS to write down the name of CHS's cousin. The CHS told Bloss that the cousin is Jamie Isawa. The CHS told Bloss that the family would like to see Isawa for 2 or 3 days. Bloss and the CHS agreed to talk in a few days. The allegations Mr. Bloss used his position in concert with his pari, Mr. Terlahi, to keep probation officers out of jail and to take inmates out of prison for a few days at a time came forth during Bloss's federal corruption trial and in documents related to the Mark Mayo federal case. There's another section here. Cocaine comes from Saipan. There's a lot of stuff here. And I read it, and, you know, if I had a low opinion of Jesse Bloss before, it's even lower now. And I don't really think that Joey Terlahi is a star either. But the thing that I'm wondering about is the feds know about all this stuff, and they're really prosecuting Joey Terlahi for a relatively minor crime. And what about the rest of this stuff? Everybody get a get out of jail free card there or something?
Those are some powerful letters from Santos.
I think it must have been it. Angel Santos saved the day for the whole, because I suspect the FBI guys are saying, well, we could go all the way with these guys. We can get the U.S. attorney to prosecute them and maybe even get convictions. But, you know, once Angel Santos goes in and talks at the sentencing hearing, game over. It's not worth the effort. All right, let me take a look here at what we got on Facebook. And it's just about time to go to Churchill Downs, and then we'll come back to Helen versus Vanessa Williams.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's canned salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Okay, so here we are at Churchill Downs, getting ready to run the home stretch. Three furlongs more, and I'll be crossing the finish line. And now I've got an item on the card called Helen versus Vanessa Williams. And I'm just going to read two things that are in the public domain. I'm not going to comment. I'll let you do your own evaluation as to which one is pro-abortion and which one is anti-abortion. Starting out with this one. When 4 children were removed from a neglectful home, there was hope. They went to temporary housing where they were cleaned and fed and cared for. 7 months later, a newborn joined the sibling group. And months after that, in 2009, an article appeared in the paper looking for a home for 5 siblings with special needs. For years, no one answered the call. The children grew. After several years, the family adopted 2 and moved. After several years, a family adopted 2 and moved off island. In early 2013, another family fostered 1 of the 3. Then 2 remained. When I read that story in 2009, my nest was emptying, but I just knew those kids were mine. But not yet. I still had 7 kids at home, too many to become a foster parent. I did what I could. I supported the work of Harvest House, then a budding nonprofit focused on foster care. At the first Harvest House Christmas celebration, I saw them. The youngest was in a double stroller with the next older sibling. The others were scattered among the workers. Only, as you were, one had a tiny walker. With each passing Christmas, I saw them, still in the shelter group, still siblings, together but still alone. And I knew. I just knew. My house continued to empty. When the sibling group was down to 3, my kid count had dropped to 4. Then another family came forward and considered the youngest 2, a boy and girl. They chose the girl, whom they adopted. 2 boys were left. In mid-2013, we became foster parents and brought them home. By the time the youngest moved in, he had been in temporary care 5 years. The other had spent 6 years there before joining our family. Why did they wait so long? At the time, there was a lack of foster parents, as there always is. According to Harvest House, there are now 70 active foster families, but there are now close to 600 children in the system. Thanks to the partnership of Harvest House and CPS, newborns are now placed in families quickly. They don't linger as mine did. This is National Foster Care Month. Well, it's always a good time to consider becoming a foster parent. It's particularly good now. Guam's children need you. Not everyone is called to be a foster parent, but perhaps everyone should struggle with the thought. When the time is right, you'll know. You'll just know. All right. One approach. And we have this one. It's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. Not going to say anything. I couldn't speak any more clearly and to the point than the 2 people whose texts I just read. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the card. This is Archbishop Corleone versus Archbishop Burns. Corleone is the Archbishop of San Francisco. The San Francisco Archbishop and Nancy Pelosi's home district has barred the Speaker of the House from receiving communion in light of her pro-abortion stance, one that was reflected in her work to pass the falsely named Women's Health Protection Act that would have expanded a concocted, quote, right to abortion far beyond what Roe allowed and what a majority of Americans support. Archbishop Salvatore Corleone made the announcement of the decision on Friday in a written message to Speaker Pelosi that has since been published on the San Francisco Archdiocese website. It's pretty clear what the Catholic Church believes regarding life and when it begins, and the grave sin Pelosi is committing with her public support for abortion, which she justifies through her proclaimed Catholic faith. The Second Vatican Council, in its decree on the Church in the Modern World, entitled Gaudium et Spes, reiterated the Church's ancient and consistent teaching that from the first moment of conception, life must be guarded with the greatest care, while abortion and infanticide are unspeakable crimes. Christians have indeed always upheld the dignity of human life in every stage, especially the most vulnerable, beginning with life in the womb. His Holiness Pope Francis, in keeping with his predecessors, has likewise been quite clear and emphatic in teaching on the dignity of human life in the womb. This fundamental moral truth has consequences for Catholics and how they live their lives, especially those entrusted with promoting and protecting the public good of society. Pope St. John Paul II was also quite consistent in upholding this constant teaching of the Church and frequently reminded us that those who are directly involved in lawmaking bodies have a grave and clear obligation to oppose any law that attacks human life. For them, as for every Catholic, it's impossible to promote such laws or to vote for them. A Catholic legislator who supports procured abortion after knowing the teaching of the Church commits a manifestly grave sin, which is cause of most serious scandal to others. Therefore, the universal church law provides that such persons are not to be admitted to Holy Communion. Canon Law 915. With regard to the application of these principles to Catholics in political life, then Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, as the prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, wrote to U.S. bishops in 2004 explaining the approach to be taken. When a person's formal cooperation becomes manifest, understood in the case of a Catholic politician as his consistently campaigning and voting for permissive abortion and euthanasia laws, his pastor should meet with him about the Church's teachings, informing him that he is not to present himself for communion until he brings to an end the objective situation of sin, and warning him that he will otherwise be denied the Eucharist. When these precautionary measures have not had their effect, and the person in question with the obstinate persistence still presents himself to receive the Holy Eucharist, the minister of Holy Communion must refuse to distribute it. In striving to follow this direction, I am grateful to you for the time you have given me in the past to speak about these matters. Unfortunately, this is Corleone again. Unfortunately, I have not received such an accommodation to my many requests to speak with you again since you vowed to codify the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision in federal law following its passage of Texas Senate Bill 8 last September. That's why I communicated my concerns to you via letter on April 7, 2022, and informed you there that should you not publicly repudiate your advocacy for abortion rights, or else refrain from referring to your Catholic faith in public and receiving Holy Communion, I would have no choice but to make a declaration in keeping with Canon 915 that you are not to be admitted to Holy Communion. As you have not publicly repudiated your position on abortion and continue to refer to your Catholic faith in justifying your position and to receive Holy Communion, that time has now come. Therefore, in light of my responsibility as the Archbishop of San Francisco to be concerned for all Christian faithful entrusted to my care, by means of this communication, I hereby notify you that you are not to present yourself for Holy Communion, and should you do so, you are not to be admitted to Holy Communion at such time as you publicly repudiate your advocacy for the legitimacy of abortion and confess and receive absolution of this grave sin in the sacrament of penance. So this article goes on to say, last May, Corleone warned that prominent Catholics who continue to support abortion, and even worse, still use their Catholic faith to justify their stance, ought to be denied Holy Communion. This is bitter medicine, Corleone said, of denying Catholics the sacrament, but the gravity of the evil of abortion can sometimes warrant it. So the Bishop of San Francisco breaks bad. Now, let's bring that home. We have a governor who has repeatedly, vocally, without end, advocated abortion. And if you listen to her testimony at the legislature, not only abortion, but infanticide. She has a henchman that we've referred to as Calamity Jane here on the show, Jane Flores, who is a Catholic and made no bones about going out and starting a nationwide search to bring an abortionist to Guam, because we don't have any right now, and has used every opportunity that she has to advocate abortion. We also have a bishop, an archbishop, just like Archbishop Cordileone in San Francisco. So when you read something like this, and, you know, it probably won't be able to get through another week without the governor and Jane Flores coming out with more pro-abortion rhetoric, you got to ask yourself, where's Archbishop Burns? And I think you have something to add to that, don't you, Jose?
Yeah, and it's just a real quick connection between San Francisco and Guam. Our three newest priests had spent some time in seminary at St. Patrick's before they were ordained here on Guam, and St. Patrick's Seminary is located in San Francisco, which means that Archbishop Cordileone was the archbishop for these seminarians. So we have a kind of a kinship with San Francisco. What I want to talk about here, just introduce real quickly before the show ends, is that back in 2019 when Governor Lilian Guerrero was put into position, or she had a new administration, the Concerned Catholics of Guam had wrote a letter to Archbishop explaining, of course, their concerns about a very prominent pro-abortionist advocate and professed Catholic in a very prominent position who is still advocating for abortion. And it's rather a long letter, but I think what was interesting is the response that they got from the Archbishop Burns, which is kind of in line with what Cardinal Ratzinger, now Pope, I always forget his
Corleone?
No, Ratzinger at the time, but he became Pope Benedict later on, talked about the steps to talking to somebody like this. And Archbishop Burns replied to the Concerned Catholics of Guam in July of 2019 and said, quote, regarding the abortion issue, a hand-delivered personal letter from me was brought to the governor to begin a process of admonition concerning this issue. In this, we are trying to follow canonical advice to begin in this manner before we go public. We will see it through in the days ahead. And in a way, I commend him for doing that because he starts the process on a one-on-one basis, which is what we are called to do in our Christian methods of rectifying situations. But I think we've come to the point where you see Archbishop Cordileone said, I've tried to talk to you about this. I've tried to come forward to you one-on-one, and I've been ignored, and we've been ignored. And the scandal is great because it's affecting the rest of the parishioners. And I think that's something that I think people are calling for here on Guam as well.
That's a really good point, Jose. I think we're there. Frenchie, I see you there. I'm hoping you can call tomorrow right after Zemi Kodny, and we'll get you on at that time to talk on this same issue tomorrow. Thanks, Frenchie. Let's go, Brandon.
Working with our G7 partners to hold Putin accountable for his war in Ukraine and to stand up for our shared democratic values. I want to thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for your strong leadership and your support of the Ukrainian people.
President Biden saying that the U.S. military would intervene if China were to invade Taiwan, and that such a move would be comparable to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russian forces continuing to attack the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine. Russia launching airstrikes and missile attacks. Fox's Trey Yingst has more from Kharkiv, Ukraine.
Russian forces continue to target cities across eastern Ukraine as the death toll here mounts. In Bakhmut, a town in the Donbas region, a Russian airstrike destroyed a university building. In recent days, Russia has launched strikes often killing or injuring civilians. Here in the Kharkiv region, Russian troops are shelling the northern part of the city. Russian troops have pushed back slightly.
Enough baby formula for more than 500,000 baby bottles arriving in Indianapolis from Europe via military plane Sunday. U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack says the import process, which usually takes weeks, took just days to complete.
Now, the reason why we are doing this is obviously the critical need that is out there. It would take approximately 2 weeks for the normal commercial process to work.
The White House announcing that later this week, a second flight containing baby formula will arrive. America is listening to Fox News.
Get all of your favorite Fox News podcasts ad-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Trey Gowdy, the Fox News Rundown, Will Kane, Brian Kilmeade, and so much more. Go to foxnewspodcasts.com for all the details. The Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day, featuring insight from top newsmakers, reporters, and Fox News contributors. Listen and subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. New from the Fox News Podcasts Network, Dana Perino, co-host of The 5 and America's Newsroom on Fox News Channel, returns to the world of audio with a new limited-time podcast, Everything Will Be Okay with Dana Perino. Building off the success of her best-selling book of the same name, Dana provides an unequaled brand of advice built on real-life experience and interviews experts and individuals that make a difference in the lives of others. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
With the